Hello, everyone. This is Professor Hamamoto. It is September 27th, year 2022, 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I welcome one and all to this very exciting talk that I have prepared for you. So exciting that, yes, subliminal seduction. It's not a tease, it's not clickbait. It's a book that came out. Let's see, when was it published? Gosh, I think it was back in. Let me not guess. Let me just check it out for you. Refer to my notes here. Yeah, published in 1970. I think the hardback was published in 73, and then typically the trade or the mass market version comes out a year later. So the one I got was back in 1974. And by the way, for the supporters of my show and my efforts, the Professor Hamamoto TubeU channel, those people who are on Patreon, you got a PDF copy of this book, which is now in the public domain. And it was written by an individual who I'm trying to find out more about. He's kind of a mystery, at least to me. I suspect he has some sort of connection, surprise, surprise, to the intelligence world. I think it's probably the British Commonwealth of Canada. I will say British Commonwealth of Canada because most Americans believe that Canada is our friend, and the Five Eyes countries are because it's mostly Anglo-Saxon people, right? English speaking language. Not really fully understanding that these are all daggers pointed at the heart of the American Republic. So maybe Brian Wilson Key is one of these individuals. I don't know. We'll have to check it out. But he is the putative author of this book that I read when I was in college. I think I shoplifted it. I was visiting a friend at a convenience store. We're doing these, minimum wage type part-time jobs while we're going to school, and so we'd go to visit each other where, during business hours. And if there was at a restaurant, we'd get some free food, or if it's at a store, go through the paperback section. They used to sell paperback and magazines, publications, all kinds of stuff at these stores. And I think I shoplifted it. I'm sorry. I think I should return it. I don't know. I don't know where it is. But it's Brian Wilson Key, Subliminal Seduction, subtitled Ad Media's Manipulation of a Not So Innocent America. Right. And the giveaway that I think this guy's Canadian is because we always have these Five Eyes people, Trevor Ludon, I think he's New Zealand, even Professor, he never became a naturalized citizen. He's one of the largest critics of America, but never talks about the source of many, if not most of our ills, the city of London. Professor Peter Dale Scott, who was maybe people don't know this, he was a Canadian diplomat who, for some reason, had a lifelong academic appointment as a poet. He's not a very good poet either, but his books are very interesting. But he's never really been sussed out so far as his affiliation with this larger British intelligence network, whose main purpose is not necessarily to extract information and to take it overseas to MI, right? But to demoralize the American public, telling us how awful we are. We're being invaded, we're being infiltrated by Chacoms, and on and on and on. That is probably the most effective function of intelligence agencies. We think it's spy versus spy. Yeah, that's important. But it's mostly demoralization. And that fits in very well with today's talk, which is about one media organization, which is truthfully, it's new to me. The reason why I like to do these talks is because I get to learn something. I like to learn a lot. And in preparing for this talk, ladies and gentlemen, Semper Fi, Katie Cat, Zaga Nostra, Corky, Maureen, and there's tons of you here. I'm not going to, Michael, Charlie, I'm not going to name check everybody, but you know who you are. One of the reasons, I get a kick out of learning new information that helps to fill out the picture for me and to substantiate or validate what I call cultural forensics. so far as my working method and my understanding of the socio-political world, the history of it. And in prepping for this talk here today, I got to dig into Salem, short for Jerusalem, by the way. I don't know if you realize that. Not in their case, but Salem's a lot, right? Remember Stephen King or Salem, Massachusetts? There's an organization called Salem Media Group. Started out, and I'm not going to go through it because I'm definitely not versed on their whole history. But if you want to look on one of the Wikipedia pages, you can trace the trajectory there. I think someone in the academic world, someone in communication studies or the Columbia School of Journalism, they have a fine academic journal. Someone really needs to go to Salem. In fact, I have a couple of articles like that, but nothing really exhaustive. I think a whole book, a whole monograph could be dedicated to Salem Media Group. Supposedly, they come out of the Christian evangelical. I say supposedly because, as we know by now, a lot of these entities are indeed British, not Brit, well, maybe British, but they are intelligence operations operating under the guise of religious institutions. And I'm not saying Salem is, but I'm saying that this seems to be part of the pattern. Just as we know in recent years that a lot of, especially in tech, right, located not far from where I am, are these companies are fronts for intelligence agencies, right? DARPA, Silicon Valley, DARPA Valley, CI, you all know about InQtel. And the same holds true for a lot. Well, you know everything about CBS and ABC and NBC and William Paley. We've heard this for years. This is not new stuff. It may be new to you who are just now discovering the moon and calling it research. But Jack, that work has been done. I know that's my specialty, media popular culture, and it's well known for decades and decades. It's been published in mainstream white shoe girls because they're the ones who run the publishing industry. These are the daughters of the elite of the Northeast, right? The daughters of intelligence agencies, the trust fund babies who run the publishing business. Please, one day have mercy on me. Give me a contract. You'll know I'll never get a contract because I'm a yellow man who knows the truth, right? If I was Oprah Winfrey, I'd be living down in Montecito along with the British royals, right? And I'll be going in on Montecito shortly. That's why I kind of dropped it in there. So I'm finding all kinds of good stuff about Salem Medium Group. And this is no knock on the Christian evangelical movement. It's organic, right? But you know what happens to organic movements like the civil rights and racial and ethnic studies, which I was in. It gets infiltrated, gets hijacked, and then it becomes critical race theory in order to divide people instead of trying to figure out how ethnicity and race functions within the context of American society. I always look through it through an ethnic lens and racial. I was one of the pioneers in putting this together, and I saw that being stolen and hijacked over the past few years, including in my own area, my own subspecialty of Asian American studies. Once you do the heavy lifting, then they move the coolies out of the way. I was a coolie, right? Just like coolie labor who built the railroad. Once it was done with the railroad, the Union Pacific, they got rid of them. They passed a congressional act, right? The Oriental Exclusion Act, and they got rid of John Chinaman. So you know the history. I know the history, right? So interestingly enough, in doing this particular talk today, I came across a movie which I had in my queue to watch. It comes from It looks like really something earlier, but come to find out, it's another Canadian product, just like Professor Peter Dale Scott. It's a Canadian movie that's made to demoralize Americans, and it stars American icons of this. His career is kind of sliding down by that time, but it's most of it's, well, they always have the secondary character as a Canadian subject, right? Because there's a deal within Canadian film industry that if they're going to have American stars, they also have to have a Canadian, sort of like a domestic content rule, right? We don't have that in our media. We can get foreign nationals and put them on our TV, like Trevor Noah. What's this guy from South Africa? He's a foreigner. What's he doing dictating to we Americans? Right? At least that guy, the guy that looks like he has a fake nose and glasses, John. He started out with John Stewart. I can't remember. At least he became a naturalized U.S. citizen, but he's a newbie. He's a newbie like Dinesh D'Souza. He's a newbie like a Dr. Sebastian Gorka. What are these foreigners telling us what to think? Right? We Americans are so receptive to the world that we don't realize that's about, well, you can read about it, but we have no the red lights don't go off, right? The warning bells do not sound when you just read very simple information that Dr. Sebastian Gorka spent several years in the British military intelligence. And he's one of the chief personalities who are, I'm sorry to get upset here, who are being promoted on Salem Media Group, as I'll show you in a moment. All right, so let's move to that, in fact, before I alienate you with my bloviating. So, by the way, some of the little titles I put on there are my own doing. Right, so this is witchcraft. Wow, I think I'm onto something here. So all we need to do here in the chat room is to be sensitized to it. That's all I'm doing. I'm just pointing out. And by the way, I checked out what their incomes are. These guys are making tons of money. And by the way, while I'm speaking of tons of money, let me take this opportunity to ask you to subscribe to this channel. Thank you for pushing me over the 10,000 mark. And even more importantly, to join my Patreon, because you're going to get books like Subliminal, Seduction, and some links. The people who join up later say, oh my gosh, I'm glad I joined the Patreon. There's all kinds of stuff here. Number one, I don't have the time to just really blow out all the back material that I have gathered in order to do these 60 minutes. These 60 minutes come from many, many more minutes, hours, and maybe a lifetime of material. And so I put that on the Patreon for you to enrich yourself and send it to your adult children or nephews or nieces or grandchildren who are in college or university. They can do papers on it. They can write about it. So there's all kinds of uses for them. And their professors will be astounded. They'll give them an A for their, like, where are you getting this stuff? They don't have to credit me. I'm just, because I come from that world. I know what impresses the academic, because we have to read paper, we have to grade papers, and most of them are boring, very generic, and now you can just rip them off of Wikipedia. When something crosses your desk in a blue book, the examination booklet, an essay or a research, and like it's even partly written, we go, wow, that's incredible. So anyway, I'm just telling you, it's going to be worth your while, and it's going to be worth it for your whole family to get involved with my Patreon group. So here's Salem. Take a look at this here. Let me run it because my introduction's going far too long. That is the lineup of the Salem operatives there. Dennis Prager, Charlie Kirk, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. By the way, PhDs do not use the doctor title in public. That's the protocol. He can't even call himself professor. I can. I'm a professor emeritus of the University of California because he's never held an academic appointment. So it's just sort of a vanity. He comes from some jive-ass university. I don't know what it is. Eric Metaxas, he's probably the most credible person. He's an author. He's written a couple books. And then Larry Elder, who most people know. I'm not going to interrupt.
My podcast is sponsored by Salem Media, and I knew that other Salem hosts felt.
Remember, he puts it by very quickly. This is a sponsored documentary. Here it is. I was going to just do a simple critique of 2000 Mules, which I got the other day. Thank you, Patreon people. You allow me to buy these DVDs. But then I saw that 2000 Mules is just a manifestation of something much more important, which is Salem Media. And he just kind of lets it go very, very quickly. These guys are all very, very skilled and adept in evading truths or just kind of let them slipping by. And I mention this because usually that's supposed to be, according to these people, that's the exclusive property of the Democrats, of the left, of the cultural Marxists. But no, these Salem Media assets are probably even more slick in that type of work. Let me get back to it. I promise not to. Here it is. Salem Media assets striding down the hall.
My frustration. Larry Elder, Dennis Prager, Eric Metaxas, Sebastian Gorka, Charlie Kirk.
Let me begin by asking a very simple question. Do we feel confident or comfortable that we know the truth about what really happened in the 2020 election?
I'm agnostic on this question, and I am awaiting more information.
What about you, Eric?
I think Dennis is a coward. I think, no, honestly, it's almost funny to me you say you're agnostic. And I think most Americans know that we don't know what happened and are not okay with that, by the way.
I'm supposed to believe that a man who didn't campaign or campaign from his base.
There's your British military intelligence asset who has his own show. Let me take a moment. I thought this is, since this is not something that I pursued in my life. I just went down the list here and found out the net worth of all these individuals. And by the way, I'm not prejudiced against high net worth and people like Eric Metaxas. He's worth $5 million. There's all these sites you can check. He makes $4 million a year. That breaks down to $32,000 a month. That's about as much as a working class American makes. That's US dollars we're talking about here. And I didn't know about him anything really, but he's an author. He's written some real books, it seems. And let's look at Dinesh D'Souza's net worth, since he's only worth $4 million. I suspect he's worth more than that. Pretty good for a humble immigrant, like the way he presents himself, which you'll see in a moment. As you know, he was born in Mumbai, what's called Mumbai today. He was born in Bombay, 61. And he was plucked out of obscurity at Dartmouth College, right? Congregationalist university, because they needed some Asian American face, but not an East Asian. No, it's either got to be South. It's usually South Asians they're going to go with because it's the whole Gunga Din syndrome. They're loyal, because if you have a Chinaman or Japanese, East Asian, they're going to betray you because they're very treacherous people. They're going to stab you in the back. Anyway, I'm being facetious here. But Gunga Din, played by Sam Jaffe, he's Jewish. He wasn't even Indian. He died for Sahib, right? Gunga Din will die for Sahib, just like Tonto, right? For the Lone Ranger. Dennis Prager, he's pretending to be a rabbi, and he's going to preside over Rosh Hashanah. I guess he can do whatever he wants. Let's see how much he's worth. He's listed as a talk show. He's been around for, especially in the LA market. He's worth $10 million. I'm sorry, not billion. $10 million. Again, fine. I don't know if he's been involved in any sort of research that are killing people or destroying your immune system, right? So if he made $10 million being a blowhard, conservative or not, then more power to him. He's been around since 1969, so his net worth should be much higher than some of these new guys, which I'll get to, especially Charlie Kirk, who's only 28 years old. He looks like an old man, but he's only 28 years old. I'll get to him in a moment. Okay, you can check it out. By the way, he's a Zion. He's pro-Israel, like most of these guys are. You don't get on the radio unless you're gonna not about Israel, like keeping the money conduit going to America 2.0, right? Let's look at Sebastian Gorka, and this is where you can get some of the biographical information. Net worth, age, career. You can get his weight. He's 6'3". He probably it looks like he weighs about 300 pounds. But so he's Hungarian, says American. Maybe he's a dual citizen. I don't know. He's estimated to be about $7 million, right? Hungarian, Austro-Hungarian, right? Right. Saxe-Coburg. Anybody? I don't know. We gotta really dig into this guy, man. Instead of just listening to him on Salem Media and rewarding him. I mean, he's fresh off the boat. He is an FOB, fresh off the boat. Yeah. He's born in the UK, Hungarian parents, probably quote unquote refugees from the Soviet bloc, right? And on and on. Yeah. Here it goes. His own bio, 3 years in the 22 Intelligence and Security Group, and on, right? Another high earner. By the way, for those of you, this puts him in the upper level of the upper middle class, right? If making that kind of money. Oh yeah, I forgot to finish my plea. Join my Patreon for $5 a month. You're going to get more quality information and analysis from Professor Hamamoto from many of these ass clowns. And here's Charlie Kirk, right? This guy really irritated. I watched this show for the first time the other day because it's on YouTube and probably on a website, and of course, Salem Media. This guy's 28 years old. My God. He's making $370K a year. Okay, a 28-year-old recent graduate of Yale Law School doesn't make that much coming out of the chute. And this guy didn't even graduate from college. What are you doing? Skip law school. Don't go to grad school. Forget med school. Become a Salem Media glib jerkwad ass clown. But you do have to be glib and you have to talk. See, I couldn't make it because I'm unable to speak at 160 words per minute. You have to be very, very fast because, especially if you're on radio, you got to be able to hit them. You got to just be able to go and you said you have no dead air at all. Blah, 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 blah. Right. Charlie Kirk is good. Right. I think this is really, probably some product of neuroengineering, or maybe he's naturally ADCD or I don't know, but he's worth a lot of money. 28 years old. No, wait a minute. I'm sorry. His net worth already at age 28 is 19 million US dollars. He earns up to $100,000 each month. Whoo-wee. And then he's got all kinds of side hustles, additional business income. And by the way, if you watch that show on YouTube, it's like a commercial every like 2 or 3 minutes. It's like, listen to AM radio. There's some money in this business, man. No wonder Dinesh D'Souza, who orchestrated this little, I'm sorry, I don't know. Let me put myself back on that. Who wants to look at Sebastian Gorka? I'm much more handsome than him. Dinesh D'Souza, who put this all together, I mean, no wonder he plays down the fact that he's a Roman Catholic, because he had to and America is the land of reinvention. Look at Dr. Sebastian Gorka and these other jerkwads. All you have to do is hang out your shingle, and Americans are so welcoming and happy, smiley, happy people will accept anybody without even checking them out, just on face value. Right? We're the smiley, happy people of the world. And the rest of the world laughs at us. The rest of the world, they're very serious. The Italians are very serious people. Europeans are very serious. The people of Asia and Africa, North and South, they're not walking around like a bunch of smiling, happy people. No, man, they are serious about life. Congratulations, by the way, to the Italian people who have a newly elected leader. Meloni. I'm sorry, I'm still getting used to her name. A promising turn of events. Again, it's not about her. It's about the sentiment of the Italian people who have had enough, right? Just like it was not about Orange Man himself. It was about the ideas which allowed him to be slipped in, who I am beginning to be more, Orange Man, I'm beginning to be more suspicious of him all the time. The people like Salem Media Group are riding that tide of Orange Man in order to expand their own media empire, and everything goes with it, which is an increased military, increased prison industrial complex, more draconian laws. Really, they're supposed to be civil libertarians, but right, about quote unquote the whole full spectrum dominance has been called, right? That's what's going on. So before I go on, let me feed you some more. Well, I'm not feeding you. It's Dinesh D'Souza. His legend, they call it in CIA spycraft, legend, his backstory. He's just an innocent, American dream seeking Indian, South Asian, right? Who just happened to wind up at Dartmouth and was plucked out of obscurity and was turned into a wunderkind of Asian America, right? I'm going to stop calling myself Asian America. If he's supposed to be, he's claiming the title of it. So that means I got to drop it. And I remember as a starving recent graduate of the University of California at the doctoral level, his book came out. Dinesh, is called A Liberal Education. I think it was 91 or something like that. And I looked, I said, there's no way some 22-year-old kid is going to write this book. It's kind of like an Annie Jacobson. It was a team academic effort run by probably a bunch of neocons and editors and academics. And they put this brown face up there called Dinesh D'Souza. Now, he's probably, the training wheels have probably come off by now and he can function on his own with Salem Media. But here's his backstory here. By the way, they threw him in jail, they meaning the Justice Department, just like they're persecuting Alex Jones, just like they arrested Roger Stone. It seems like you have to be arrested. And that's how they launder. That's how they give you your cred, right? Then they put you back on the street to finish out the rest of the program. You go, yeah, he'd been in jail, right? Orange Man gave him a presidential pardon. He's got cred. So now we can trust him. No. Anybody been to prison? They set it up. And by the way, he wasn't in prison. This is something I learned. He was in some sort of honor farm, right? He could come and go as he wants. Like it was even easier time than Ghislaine Maxwell today. Here he is.
I grew up in a world in which politics didn't seem to matter very much. I came to America as a typical Asian American kid, interested in economics and math. I kind of caught the political bug in the 1980s. It was the age of Reagan. The conservative accepts that the world is a dangerous place. I'd rather pull the bandwagon than sit in the bandwagon, and I think that's probably what distinguishes me from a lot of other people. I think under's better, but you guys decide. It's funny.
Oh yeah, he's at the barrio. I bet if I told him, hey, Dinesh, let's go get a Manuel special over at El Tepeyac, he wouldn't even know what I was talking about. Yeah, he's gangster, all right. He has a lot of strange relationships with women. That's one of the characteristics of these intelligence assets. I'm not saying he is an intelligence asset. I don't want to libel him. If he wanted to sue me, that's fine. I don't have any money. That's one of the benefits of living in, on Social Security. I don't think they can sue you for that.
I would describe my political work as an act of gratitude. It's a defense of the American dream, and my sense of humor as sardonic, inclined to self-deprecation and ridicule. Considering that I'm spending my nights in a confinement center, you can say that I've had the experience of the Empire Strikes Back. And so when you throw a harpoon, you've got to recognize that there are going to be some return fire. The really big criminals are at large. In fact, the really big criminals are running things. I thought one of the special things about America...
See, there's one group of criminals that he doesn't want to talk about. That's his own Republican Party. It's always the Democratic Party with a capital D. These guys are all Republican foot soldiers who are in this giant spin cycle media center. Let's see the history. Just very briefly, the Salem Media Group. That's an article. I'll put it on my patch around so that people can read it in more detail. Founded nearly 50 years ago. Wow, these guys. Ed Atziger III, Stuart Epperson, two evangelical in-laws, built an empire out of a Christian talk and teach radio stations. Wow, and that they concentrated in the top 25 media markets. So these are the the latter-day descendants of Elmer Gantry, I suppose. I mean, people have been written about these, C.C. Ryder, right? That old folk song. That's the circuit preacher. He's the guy that goes rides around on a jackass, seducing all these women wherever he's preaching. Right? C.C. Ryder, you ruined my home. They're like the traveling salesman, like old man Rockefeller. Wasn't he a snake oil salesman? Well, these guys are snake oil salesmen themselves under the guise of preaching the gospel, right? So here it goes. Here's a quote by David Santrella, Salem's president, current one, I guess. It says, "The footings of the foundation of our company are its Christian roots." Right. Okay, here, and they have there's a whole media conglomerate behind under Salem Media, right? There's Town Hall, which I didn't know was Salem. Red State is one of them, right? They attract more than 15 million unique visitors a month, and I have 10,000 subscribers. Wow. Who's David and who's Goliath? They own Regnery Books. It's a conservative, to put it mildly. They acquired it in 2014. I didn't know that. I have many Regnery books. I read it. They're heavily against the Red Dragon, which is China, right? They're not against the Red, White, and Blue Dragon, however, which is the Republican and the Democratic Party, and Wall Street, right? So you got Red State, some of the personalities, Ann Coulter, commentators, right? Well, I haven't heard from her lately. What happened to Ann Coulter, right? She's disappeared. She went into the tank. And then Michelle Malkin, haven't heard from her lately. Maybe she's lying low. She's Filipino, by the way. So I guess Salem Media is the only media, at least put some Asian people on air, right? They can't be East Asian, though. They got to be either Filipino or South Asian, because the East Asian people are treacherous, right? Dr. Fu Manchu, I'm growing a Fu Manchu and to scare the shit out of these people. There's got Newt Gingrich, right? Sebastian Gorka. Hugh Hewitt, you might not know him. He's been around for the LA market. You know about him. He's a Zionist, right? Not a religious Zionist, a military industrial complex Zionist. Anyway, here I'll read you the blurb. It says, collectively, Salem's programming serves as a quote-unquote kind of idea factory for folks, millions. It says, a megaphone that gets the word out to believers and helps them interpret the political debates of the day. And this is Craig Parshall of the National Religious Broadcasters, right? Quoting Parshall, says, most people are busy about their jobs. They try to follow the headlines, but explosion of the information on the internet, blah, blah, blah. They have to just flip on the channel and listen to Dennis Prager and Sebastian Borka. That's their function there. Just sort of the inattention of most people because they're too busy. They're trying to make ends meet, and these people are pulling down six figures and enjoying the fruits of their $10 million net worth. Okay, and they went public. That means they sold to Wall Street. This is in 1990. Boy, I got to really dig in further to Salem Media Group. They're really fascinating. So for those of you who are listening here, I think there's one conclusion that you can come to. That is, subscribe to my channel and stop listening to these people. Buy some documentaries, buy books, even if they're anti-Trump, like Susan Bradford. This is really Trump bashing. It's all very substantial. I don't mean that in disparaging. The End of Globalism. She says the whole election, the whole theft stuff is a whole scam, which of course makes these people with all their underwear, right, all tight in a bunch, all bunch. It makes it bogus because it was a part of a, a setup in general. He took a fall, man. He took a fall. That's where I'm at right now. Okay. And then you got Dinesh D'Souza and Gorka and all those other. And then they have the nerve. I'll end this, not now, but before the end of the show, I'm going to show you what a candy ass Dinesh D'Souza is. Oh, yeah, voting is the heart of democracy. You got to get out there and you got to subscribe to Salem Media and buy our products, right? Buy all our miracle supplements. And if you don't, you're going to go to hell. Even though I'm Catholic, I've remade myself into an evangelical to the point where you gave me a position at King's College in New York. Who knows what that is, right? King's College, and you made me the president of it. And I was like in my 30s, right? Didn't have a PhD, not even a master's degree, but you made me the president of an evangelical Christian college, right? And then I got caught out with my fiance, and I wasn't even divorced yet, right? My first wife was like a Southern California girl, Dixie, down in San Diego, a nice blonde, right? I mean, I'm sure the people in intelligence say, just like they got Suharto in bed with the blondes, man. They get all the C-level actresses and models and put them in bed with all these people. I'm not saying this has happened to him, but I told you he's had some problems, and this is not me. It's public knowledge with women's, right? So you know about the honey trap. So I'm going to end with not now, but I'll show you after you know what these people are about. You're not going to be able to look at them in the same way. You cannot unsee what you've seen today and unhear what Professor Hamamoto is laying down. So from here on out, every time you see Sebastian Gorka's lips flapping, or Larry Elder's, a little bit more acceptable, a little bit more real. But if you see Dinesh D'Souza, who has his media or organizations, it turns out it's being funded by all this money, I guess, coming through Salem to sustain the system. They want to make sure that the system as it stands now keeps going on. And that includes big pharma, that includes big military, that includes big education, all of it. They don't want to see any of it's changing because they'd be getting paid, right? Salem making big. They need alienation as part of their business plan. That is the strategy there. The more alienation with, especially amongst Christian evangelicals who are kind-hearted, they believe in the redemption and prayer and in Jesus Christ. And if they're not Protestant, they are part of the Marian, the Virgin Mary. I won't call it. Well, let's just leave it at that. There's a big doctrinal dispute whether Mary should be worshipped amongst these different groups. But all that aside, they need that alienation, and this has been workshopped, as I embedded in the title here, through this whole idea of subliminal seduction. And it's not even subliminal anymore. It's paraliminal. It's supraliminal. It's right out in front of us, right? If you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear what I'm telling you, this is a psy-op, right? It may not have a direct connection to Fourth Army psychological, but it might as well, because of their persuasive techniques. They're so slick that you have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of Christian evangelicals who are buying into this whole psy-op. They're being whiplashed, right? From one end to another.
As the world watches and listens in horror, the peaceful pro-democracy demonstration in China comes to a violent and bloody end. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Wolves hiding nearby, whispering do or die around me. You say your last good night while I begin.
There is another very important phase of warfare. It has as its target not the body, but the mind of the enemy.
The target of psychological warfare is against the enemy's mind.
It is words and ideas.
The ammunition used by psy-war.
Its mission is to influence the thoughts of the enemy soldier, and at the same time
is expected and encouraged to study foreign languages and the social sciences such as history, economics, and sociology. He must have a broad and sympathetic understanding of all phases of human experience.
Gripping at my skin, the walls of night close in.
But the use of this force as an integral part of combat has now taken on new form.
As I wait to say my last goodbye.
Okay, I pulled that right off of TubeView, and it's a channel that is hosted, according to what I'm reading, by U.S. Army 4th Psychological. You got it? That's not some video done by some disgruntled patriot. That's done by supposedly the U.S. Army. It's there. I'll put the link into my Patreon so that you can check it out for yourself, because there's a little bit of judder here. And I understand that at the January 6th, there were some people there, and some people who were part of the so-called Patriot movement and Proud Boys. A lot of them were identified as being from 4th Army Psychological, right? And I'm not saying that Salem Media is directly linked with them, but the outcome and the goals are very much consistent with what we're seeing here. So what I'm trying to warn against is that the people who are good-hearted and looking for guidance and leadership and for information, you're going to have to work a little bit harder for it. You're going to have to start reading books and magazines and journals, and looking at channels such as this, reading my book, because I've done a lot of psy-war analysis myself. I'm a media and popular culture specialist, right? Taught in some of the top film schools in the country, in the United States, that is. All right. So where does a lot of this stuff come from? Remember Colonel Edward Lansdale? he gets a lot of play now, but he's been dead for years. I think we need a serious update. We need to up our game here. We need to bring it up to 2022. And I know Nazis and paperclip people are very sexy because they have those incredible uniforms with the skulls on them. And, we want to talk about, events that, they have relevance today. The Kennedy assassination, 9/11. You got the guy who founded Architects and Engineers for 9/11. He's still at it. But the science is in, the forensics are in now. It's a political question. We need to talk about 2022. That's why I'm going in on Salem Media, because I'm seeing that they're following in that exact, well, not exact, but a very, very similar pattern, but at a much, much more sophisticated level. Having been whipsawn right through the past 2-3 years of an orchestrated crisis, these people, these pop-up pundits, right, these fast-talking 160 beats per minute, below-ating pundits have just sort of manifested themselves like a bunch of toadstools after a fresh rain. Like you see all them little worms like trying to crawl across the sidewalk, getting from one part to after a rain. That's what's happening. Okay, so where did we talked about Land? He was an advertising man, right? A lot of this stuff was workshopped at the consumer level, right? The 1950s, which I'm a product, was the age of consumerism, right? You don't just have one like cereal brand, you got like a dozen. You don't have just one Coke, you've got Pepsi, you got everything, not just one car. That's why we're winning against the Ruskies. We cannot produce them, right? So that was sort of the test market, right, of the consumer society. So there is this film, again, a Canadian production using American actors. And by the way, you might recognize Valerie Perrine in this. Well, not in this particular clip. I don't think I'll have time to show it. But I want to show you Subliminal Seduction, right, in action, as articulated by Wilson Bryan Key. But this movie is directly deriving from these insights. I think Key might have been a British psy-war. You'll recognize Robert Mitchum, the great Robert.
You remember No Sweat, Morgan?
I use a different brand.
Yeah, so do I. Sit down.
See, they're
make yourself comfortable.
Selling deodorant, right? Ostensibly. Subliminally, they're selling fashion.
The No Sweat campaign carried two messages. The sponsors and mine.
Subliminal tape beneath the surface tape.
I can bring it up or fade it down as I see fit. The message registers, but the viewer's not conscious of it. On the commercials that ran, my subliminal message was embedded in the videotape at 1/300th of the intensity of the surface message. I got through to my audience, Morgan. I retired the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. That's one more knee-jerk liberal out of the way.
How do you know he wouldn't have lost anyway?
Consider the technique. Our candidate was trailing by 9 to 11 points in all the polls up until a week before the election. No Sweat changed all that.
Well, I suppose your next step is the White House.
Precisely. It's a devastating weapon, Morgan. Let us into the living room, we can enter the mind.
It's power. Whose power?
Our power. Public opinion is crucial. Someone must use a guiding hand.
And you've chosen yourself for that privilege.
Not at all. I've been hired, financed. I am in philosophical agreement with the people I work for. So that does make it cozy.
Who are they?
The names don't matter, Morgan, though you might recognize some of them. Let's just call them an elite of power, or maybe an influential elite who understand the value of manipulating public opinion.
You know, Mr. Quinn, I'm going to expose you.
I think not, Morgan. Nor have you any right to. The public wants to be led. It needs to be led. And we have long-term plans.
What a great great idea. A picnic on the lunar surface.
I don't know how this happened, but I forgot the chocolate planet mix.
Oh, no.
There needn't be an emergency. Chocolate Planet is available everywhere.
Subliminal messages for children, too?
It's the next generation. They spend 6 hours a day watching television. We can plant seeds.
What's beneath that commercial?
It's not all negative, Morgan. Really, it isn't. The concentration of power is healthy. It's like a vacuum cleaner that sucks up all the chaos and disorder and gets rid of it. It's as simple as getting a few messages across.
Gives you the right to clean up anything. In the end, people will always think for themselves.
But deep faith in human nature from a man who's built a career on suggesting the differences between laundry detergents, mouthwashes, and dog food. Philip, you leave me speechless.
Milk drink that will turn you.
There's nothing on the Chocolate Planet commercial yet.
Chocolate Planet.
It's like an unloaded gun. We begin programming it tomorrow. Without you, I'm afraid. This time, do it right.
There you go, the great Robert Mitchum. What an incredible speech from a really low-budget film that's over 40 years old, starring the $6 million man, for those of you who are old enough to get the reference. That's Lee Majors, who, by the way, in watching this film, because I know him from television with the Big Valley, Barbara Stanwyck, and Linda Evans was in that one too. And it was set here in nearby where I am in Stockton, California. And then other, you know him from, I think it was not Marcus Welby. He played like the junior attorney from this, he's done a lot of TV, but so I never got to really see him act, but he's in a feature film, and Lee Majors was a really good actor. He was underutilized. His background needs to be checked into as well, because as you know, these people are not discovered, at Schwab's drugstore. They're groomed, quite literally groomed and made over. When I say made over, I'm talking about, like, maybe not in his case, but complete maxillofacial surgery. That's the reason why Beverly Hills is full of, Israeli specialists who do this type of work for non-actors as well, right? So there you go. That's the advertising connection there. I just wanted to remind you that John Hughes, the guy that was fantasized, that was just completely taken with Molly Ringwald and all these little teenagers, kind of creepy for a man who's, like in his 40s, maybe 30s. But he, did the Breakfast Club and all the John Hughes teen coms that circled the world and took hold in America right here. Where did he come from? He came out of advertising by way of National Lampoon. National Lampoon used to be called the Harvard Lampoon, right? So the literary, the humor, the movie, the media connection holds true. Lansdale, also an advertising executive. I've been trying, and maybe you can help me out here. I've been trying to find out what specific advertising agency did Colonel Edward Lansdale work for. I know he was CIA and military. He was seconded to any number of institutions and was the key. He was the quiet American of Graham Greene's novel, supposedly. Graham Greene himself, the British author, was part of British Secret Services and Roman Catholic convert as well, right? And that's also part of the assignment here. Instead of listening to these people here, start reading the literature. You can even read Ian Fleming, and you'll learn a lot more about how the world functions and the center of the financial system being in the Caribbean than you will ever learn from Dr. Sebastian Gorka, who's British intelligence, right? Military intelligence. Supposedly he's an American now, but I wouldn't count on it. So before we leave, let's take a look at Valerie Perrine, because I noticed someone picked up that reference, and I'm mentioning it because I'm going on John O'Loughlin's great show in an hour. I'm taking an hour break, then I'm going live with him, and I'm going to talk about the Huguenot, or Huguenot if you're an American, diaspora. I think that's one of the really underdeveloped strains with an understanding of American history, the Huguenot people, because Valerie Perrine, in preparing, remember I tell you, I really get a kick out of finding this stuff while I'm working for you here. Turns out that she's a descendant of he was known as the Huguenot. He was one of the founders of colonial New York, and he had a whole bunch of really distinguished descendants. His original name was Perrine, but her name was Perrine. It was anglicized, right? Probably to fit in with the large. I don't know, but she comes from that whole family, and I just found all these incredible relatives. Just she's a descendants of all these different intellectuals and creative people and political figures who derive from the Huguenot connection. And I started researching today because John O'Loughlin has been having a discussion with Detroit Dave Cranmer Underdown and wonders why he's been passed over and not brought in to the inner circle of the ruling elite, having gone through all these prep schools and private schools, and knowing his family, knowing all these people in the Michigan, the Detroit area. And I think the answer to that is the Huguenot connection. Detroit, Detroit. I mean, is that not a Huguenot connection right there? And that's how you're dealing with the Huguenot mafia, big time, right? We know about the Sicilian mafia, the Yakuza, and the triads, who are still very active, by the way. United Bamboo, they're big time in Taiwan. They're big time in the Bay Area. I'm sure they're some of the puppet masters who are controlling, people like, well, you know who they are. And you know about the Jewish mafia, you know about Meyer Lansky and all that, but you don't know about the Huguenot mafia. And I'm saying that part of my task here is to help update the agenda, because I'm tired of hearing about the sexy Nazis and about, MK Ultra and the Kennedy assassination and 9/11, right? I mean, we can never get enough research. Yeah, I know that, but we're in a spin cycle here with people who are reading old work and presenting it as their own new discoveries. They're not new discoveries. They're not new. They're new to you, right? So you got to do your homework so that you can get to my level and start plowing new ground. And so the ground that I'm plowing is the Huguenot connection, going back to their expulsion from France, Catholic France. They were kicked out, and guess where they went? They went to places like Geneva. They went to Switzerland. They went up to the banking areas. They settled. They were welcome. They were welcome to the Low Countries, and they were welcome in the colonial America for their skills. Brilliant people, intellectual tradition, and craftsmen, and we've got a lot more to learn there. So let's broaden and deepen the agenda. I know Nazis are sexy. I know Paperclip is fantastic, and we want to know all about Dr. Mengele, right? But that sort of fixation takes away growth, right? Just in the same way Salem Media is stovepiping millions of people's attention into one area. So we got to keep checking ourselves so that we can expand the knowledge base and to figure out what this whole fried banana salad is about. Okay, let's end, since we're down to the last minute here, and I want to keep you over, and I gotta rest up for the John O'Loughlin show, because I'm gonna go deep. I'm gonna go to Valerie Perrine. She was also the softcore porn character in Slaughterhouse-5, the movie version, which was great, right? When they find out they're living in a little built environment, right? All along, they were living the Truman Show, right? That's Valerie Perrine, the descendant of the Huguenot himself, the godfather of the Huguenot in the Americas. So, okay, now I got to finish up here. Listen to this candy-ass sentiment, all right? These new areas that I'm suggesting that we go through and start opening it up and plunging into, it's going to be very pleasurable. We're talking about Valerie Perrine now. Can you dig it? I mean, I saw her in Playboy issue 1973. And then she was on the cover of Playboy 1981. How do I know? Because I checked out her bio and it's there. Yeah, and she was the first one to go topless on network television, right? I mean, so it's not all hard work, ladies and gentlemen, but you know that they were putting her a number on us, people like me, by putting her chi-chis on network TV. So that's Valerie Perrin. It's a Huguenot mind, mind. I won't use that four-letter word. Okay, so here's another. Here's a South Asian wonder boy, penniless immigrant story. Here's another mind fu. You know what? Right. Here we go. You're never going to hear these trite candy ass sentiments again without wanting to vomit. Here we go.
Without free and fair elections, we are not a democracy. We are a nation run by a criminal cartel masquerading as a democracy. Never in U.S. history has a presidential election been as thoroughly corrupted by coordinated fraud across multiple states as we now know took place in 2020. Today, totalitarian regimes camouflage their fake elections with appearance of democracy, but they're not real democracies. We don't want to join them. Our elections must represent the will of American citizens. We who believe in constitutional democracy must be diligent. If we give up, they win. In fact, if enough of us give up, they won't need to cheat anymore. Don't stay home. Get involved. Get out and vote. Do what is necessary to save this great country. The America we love needs us now more than ever.
There you go. Candy ass criticism. Dinesh D'Souza, Salem Media. You're all a bunch of candy asses. And I'm trying to get the evangelical Christians to start reading the Bible, right? Start with the Bible. Start reading the scripture and start reading the commentary on that. That in itself is an education. I mean, you learn all about the ancient civilization. I'm talking about the annotated version. You learn about all the ancient civilizations and the different peoples and the tribes, and as well as learning scripture. You don't have to waste your time listening to these people. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of your money, and it's subverting the American Republic. They're claiming to do just the opposite, but they don't have to be carrying no pitchforks, right, or torches. They don't have to be Antifa or BLM in order to do the psy-war number on us, we the people. Can we get wise to that instead of being perpetually surprised, right? We don't want to be the laughing stock of the world, the smiley, happy people of the global universe. It's really amazing that we've been able to survive by not behaving as adults like the people in the rest of the world. The rest of the world is really looking for us to finally grow up. And it's starting to happen, right? I think the last 2 years made a lot of people leave their adolescence and to come into full adulthood. And that's why these clowns have popped up left and right, because there is this new awakening that's taking place. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to conclude for this week of incredible live casts. I went over 2,000 with the Vigano piece on last Tuesday, and just in the same time, you have the new leader, Melani of Italy, coming in. The Italian people once more are going to be leading the way. They're probably going to get rid of the banking system, right? That really got the whole Western world and the whole the rest of the international economy. That's where it started, right? The Venetians. The whole story there. People know that. They know that. They've been reading the Eustace Mullins, right? They know about Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound was very much into the Italian classics, and he was also very much into Chinese classics, by the way. That's how I learned about Confucius, through Ezra Pound. And he was put into a nut house a madhouse for the criminal, for the insane. And he spent a lot of time there, and he's the one that really kind of sussed it out and figured out what the source of the modern economy was. So in other words, we're learning. We're learning. I don't want to denigrate people who are still, at the early stages of your self-education, because you're not going to get it at the K through 12 at the university. But I'm also saying we need to plow new grounds here, and I think the Huguenot diaspora is one of those areas. Remember Tupper Saucy, right? I talked about him months ago. He's a Huguenot, and he wrote one of the incredible books that expose every single aspect of the true banking system here in America, and he was thrown in prison for it. All right. A lot of work to do. It's very exciting. We're moving ahead. Leave the candy asses behind. All the moralists, right? All the Dinesh D'Souza people. They're getting paid for making sure that you don't. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's my time. Thank you very much for your indulgence. I'll see you in an hour on John O'Loughlin's show. Set your schedule for that. I'm sure it's going to be a fantastic, incredible conversation, as it always is. It's a show I look forward to even more than my own. Thank you very much. Bye.